Hello, listeners. My name is Richard Yap. I'm here interviewing Sian from Perth, who is a clinical hypnotherapist and past life regressionist. She's going to tell us something about herself, her background, and some fascinating stories on her journey. Hello, Sian.
Hi, Richard.
How are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you.
Excellent. Well, please tell us something about yourself, your background, and how you ended up being a clinical hypnotherapist and past life regressionist.
I used to be a lawyer in Perth, practicing barrister and solicitor for some 13 years. Well, life was cruisy, things were good. And one day in 1991, my beloved dog Bear died. And up to then, I had not pondered the big questions in life. What happens after we die? Is there life after death? Will I ever see him again? 9 years of unconditional love and joy, is that it? I was bereft and not knowing where to get those answers. Does anybody know? I rang my brother, Fred, in London. He's a pastor, has his own little church out there. I rang him at 2 o'clock in the morning. I said, Fred, Bear's just died. What does the Bible say? Where do dogs go? Do they go to heaven? And his answer surprised me. He said, I don't know. What do you mean you don't know? And he said, the Bible doesn't specifically say anything about dogs. So I don't know. I hung up, and that started my search for meaning in life. 9 years on, I had read hundreds and hundreds of books and gone down different paths, learning meditation, many different healing modalities. Eventually, I stumbled on a huge stash or cachet of books on the area of past lives, karma, reincarnation. This was totally foreign to me, as I was brought up in a Christian family. I'd moved away from the church when I was a teenager, so I revisited, I suppose, the subject of different religions, Hinduism, Buddhism, Judaism, and so on. And eventually, I came across a fascinating book by Dr. Brian Weiss, W-E-I-S-S. He's chief of psychiatry. He was then at Mount Sinai Hospital in America. His book, Many Lives, Many Masters, was groundbreaking. It's still on the bestseller list. He was head of psychiatry at that hospital, and one day some of his colleagues referred a lady, a patient named Catherine, to him. She was a very, very difficult case, and they had not been able to have any breakthroughs with her. She presented with a number of different symptoms, including claustrophobia. She was afraid of the dark, confined spaces, and she was afraid of water, drowning. She had difficulty breathing, and basically she wasn't able to function or work anymore. She was curled up in a fetal position in her walk-in robe every night. So Dr. Weiss took her personal history, and because he's also a clinical hypnotherapist, he put her on his couch and he hypnotized her. At one point, he asked her to go to the origin, go back to a time when your symptoms started. And to his surprise, as this had never happened before in all his 27 years of practice, this lady, Catherine, suddenly spoke with a different voice, a different accent. Who are you? She gave a different name. She was in a different time era, a different period in history, wearing strange clothing. He recorded the session. He was an Orthodox Jew, and like Christians, They don't believe in past lives or reincarnation. And so he was very, very puzzled. Several sessions later, he started to do some research, and he discovered that even in the Bible, way back, the original Bible, reincarnation did exist. In the Council of Nicaea in the year 532 AD, Roman Emperor Constantine, some say it was Justinian, deleted all references on reincarnation in the Bible. That's a historical fact. Anyway, going back to the story, a number of sessions on, one day, he regressed Catherine, and she went into a different past life. And then she started to talk to Dr. Weiss about his infant son that had died a few days after childbirth, of a very rare condition. He was born with an inverted heart, like a chicken's heart. And no one apart from Dr. Weiss's immediate family and some hospital staff knew about it. He didn't even have a photograph of his deceased son in his office. So there's no way that Catherine would know about this. And he asked Catherine, "Where are you getting this information from?" No answer. Several sessions on, one day, she was in a different life, and Catherine spoke to him about Dr. Weiss's father, who had died, and she started to tell him about confidences that only father and son had shared. And again, he was startled. "Who are you? Where is this coming from?" Anyway, about 2.5 years on, Catherine had gone into about 26 different past lives. And in his final regression session with her, she described being an Indian squaw, Native American Indian. There was a big flood in the village, teepees, people were drowned. She had a very young baby that she carried in her arms, and she fled with this child up a mountain seeking refuge in a cave, hoping that the floodwaters would subside. They didn't. They rose up, up, up until they got to the roof of the cave, and Catherine's last memory in that life was of her holding her head and the baby's head above water at the roof of the cave, and they both drowned. And so, what occurred to Dr. Weiss was that lifetime, her drowning, was the reason why she had all these problems. And it was as simple as Dr. Weiss saying to her, "Well, this is from your past life, Catherine, as that Native American woman. And you've brought back into this life as Catherine memories of that drowning, that cave, the dark, and all your fears stem from that past life. Are you willing to release those memories, let them go?" And she was. And she healed. This was a first for Dr. Weiss, and he was wanting to share Catherine's story with the world, but he was very concerned that he would be laughed at by the medical fraternity. Later, he was guided by the very beings that spoke to Catherine about his son and father to publish a book about Catherine, which was also a book about his personal journey. He did, and it became a bestseller. Anyway, it's a very interesting read. The next book that influenced my decision to become a hypnotherapist was another fascinating book by Dr. Michael Newton, Destiny of Souls. And Dr. Newton, by the time he wrote his book, he'd regressed more than 4,000 people that had gone into past lives. But not only that, he took it a step further. He started to ask people, after they died in those past lives, what happened after they died, to describe the death process. Where did they go? What's on the other side, if there's another side? Are they in cryonic suspension? Do they have a life? Do they eat? Do they meet their loved ones, their pets? And so his 2 books are about life in between lives and what happens to us after we die, and what happens, the preparations that take place before a soul, before we decide to come back again in another reincarnation. Well, after I read Dr. Newton's book, I wonder if this is real. Did Doctors Weiss and Newton make up these stories just to make $1 million? And by then it was the year 2000. My curiosity was aroused. I really needed to know, because I still hadn't resolved where Bear was. And so I decided that I would learn hypnosis. I became a clinical hypnotherapist, and the only thing I was interested in was finding out about past lives. Do we indeed have past lives? Have we lived before? And where do we go after we die? So that's how I started.
Very good, fascinating. And how did you get involved in, and what did you do after that when you got started?
Well, I started by opening up my home for healing. I didn't charge for sessions. It was primarily hypnosis for healing, the conventional way. And these sessions were done on the understanding that these people would allow me to regress them. And that's what happened. Now, I did this firstly with friends, people I knew, and then their friends, people I didn't know, and then strangers, and then people who didn't know each other. And the whole point of that exercise was to regress people from all walks of life, to see if there were any common threads, and if indeed some of the things mentioned in Dr. Weiss's and Dr. Newton's books about the afterlife were true. What I discovered was they were indeed very, very true. There is life after death. The soul or the spirit survives the physical body. And there's a wonderful world out there on the other side that we call home or the light. That's where we've all come from. And these are the words of my clients, not myself. So, the work was very, very fascinating. And there were many healings through past life regressions. I'll talk about that a little later. In 2007, this wonderful lady, Dolores Cannon, arrived in Australia, in Perth, to teach her very first Australian workshop on quantum hypnosis, healing, therapy.
Well, that sounds really interesting. Can you tell us more about Dolores?
Dolores is from America. She's a very well-known metaphysical author. She's written 17 books on the subject based on 40 years of experience as a past life regressionist. She's a researcher of ancient or lost knowledge, and also she speaks at all the UFO conferences around the world. And there's a huge body of evidence in her books, not only about life after death, but ETs, UFOs, and the like. And so, in her class, on the second day I was guided to it, her technique was most unusual, unlike any other hypnosis modality that I know, unlike anything that is taught in hypnosis academies. What she shared with us was, in her early years as a regressionist, she found these beings or light beings or energies coming through her clients and talking to the clients and Dolores. They seemed to know everything. They had answers to everything, and they were also able to heal the clients. So she asked these energies coming through the client, "Who are you? What do you want me to call you?" And they said, "We are the all-knowing." And sometimes they'd call themselves the collective. And they'd say, "We don't care what you call us. Call us by any name." And so Dolores called them the subconscious. And they said, "We'll answer to that." Now, the subconscious in Dolores' work and in her therapies is not the subconscious or unconscious part of the mind that psychologists and psychiatrists work with. The subconscious, in Dolores' definition, is the higher self or the oversoul, the part of us that is God, the spark of God consciousness. Now, in the sessions that I've done since I've done her course, I have asked the subconscious, "Who are you, please? I know who you are because I've worked with you in hundreds of sessions, so I know who you are, but the client does not know who you are. This is their first time, and I don't want them to go home thinking they've answered their own questions. Who are you, please, subconscious? Describe yourself in your own words." And these are some of the answers I've received. We are the all-knowing, or we are the collective. Sometimes they tell us we are all that is. They've also said we are omniscience, omnipresence, omnipotence. Or we are the Christ essence, the Christ in him, the Christ in you, the Christ in everyone. Or we are the light that he sees in his meditations. On the odd occasion, they have used the singular to describe themselves. And one day, they described themselves as, "I am." And I asked, "Who is the I in I am?" I understood that because of my Christian background, but I wasn't sure that my client understood it. And the answer was, "I am that." And then I asked, "Who is the I in I am that?" "I am who I am." Very authoritative voice. Later, the client told me she understood. That was a reference to "I am God." On another occasion, they said, "I am, we are all one. We are the sun behind the central sun." At the time, I didn't know what the central sun was, so I Googled it. And if you do that, you will find that it's a reference to God, to all that is, the source of all light and creation. Now, when Dolores came upon the subconscious, she discovered that they were able to heal her clients and give the clients answers to everything. What is their life purpose? What are their soul lessons from all the many interactions with the cast of characters in their lives, all the people they decided to incarnate with, the difficult mother-in-law, the crazy boss at work, etc. They were also able to heal emotional issues. For example, any negativity, fears, traumas, phobias, anger, resentment, grief, bitterness, disappointment, etc. Forgiveness. And they are also able to heal physical issues, aches, pains, symptoms, including debilitating and even terminal illnesses like cancer, diabetes, heart problems, asthma, respiratory problems, multiple sclerosis, Parkinson's disease, etc. The subconscious is that part of us that knows everything about you, everything about me, and everything about everything that is going on in the planet and the universes.
Well, that sounds truly amazing. So, how long have you been working with Dolores' technique, and how many people roughly have you helped over the years, and what generally have been the results?
I've been practicing Dolores' technique for 5 years now, from 2007 to 2012. I am her leading and most experienced practitioner in Australia, having done over 1,000 sessions, and before that, many more. What are the results? They have been nothing short of phenomenal. I have been blessed, honored, and privileged to witness amazing miracles. Miracles don't happen once in a blue moon. They happen all the time. The subconscious is amazing. It heals anything, if appropriate. What do I mean? The subconscious will heal anyone if they want to heal. Some people may come and say, oh, I need my knees fixed, I need to be able to walk again. But the subconscious knows, and it will say to them, no, she doesn't want to heal. And I'll go, what do you mean, subconscious? I'll just share a very short story here of a woman who came. She could barely walk, barely get out of bed. She'd been bedridden for about 8 years. And in her session, the subconscious said, she doesn't want to heal. What do you mean? The reply was, well, if she gets better, her husband will leave her for his mistress. And so she's using her illness as a crutch to hold on to him. Another exception to healing is if someone is in a coma or they're unconscious, then I'm not able to hypnotize them, and so I won't be able to help them. The other exception to healing is if someone has had an operation or surgery to the affected limb, organ, or part of the body. Then in most cases, the subconscious will say, we cannot undo the damage that the surgeons have done. So, the healing is almost 100%.
Well, that sounds truly amazing in terms of the results and the healing and the experiences people have. Just changing the subject, I understand that you were a lawyer in a previous career. I understand you were a lawyer before you were practicing hypnotherapist.
That's right. I've been in practice in Western Australia as a barrister and solicitor for some 13 years.
That's a huge sea change. Can you comment about that, please?
I was very disillusioned with the practice of law, and I learnt that justice doesn't always prevail. And so I gave up legal practice as it no longer drove me with a passion. I find hypnotherapy and helping people heal and helping them with their challenges and helping them gain awareness and insights into their soul journeys far more fulfilling and satisfying. And so this is what I do full time now. My forte is past life regression healing. I'm also a moderator on Dolores Cannon's forum, and I've also, off my own bat, started study groups for her practitioners around Australia and around the world.
Thank you for sharing that. Changing tack again, I understand that you healed yourself from life-threatening cancer. Can you share that story, please?
Yes, I was diagnosed with bowel cancer, and not long after that I had hundreds of fibroids growing in my womb. My abdomen, from being a size 10, expanded to size 16. I was bleeding 21 days in a month. I had bloating, diarrhea, constipation, and also ended up with lower back pain, mid back pain, upper back pain, and migraines, all in the one hit. And the specialist gave me 3 months to live. Chemo and radiotherapy would not help me. So they said, go home, say your goodbyes. I was very frightened. Understandably, anyone facing death would feel the same way. I didn't know what to do because in those days I didn't have the tools or the knowledge that I have today. But I had read quite a lot of books about healing, like Louise Hay, etc. And so one morning I was lying on the couch. I was so angry, I shouted out, God, I don't know if you exist. I'd like to think you do, but I don't know. I don't see you, I don't hear you. And so, if you do exist, then surely you must hear me. And if you do hear me, please help me. That was a cry of desperation from my soul. And in the next moment, there were no bells or whistles. There weren't any guys in the long white robes and white beards. All I received was a flash, a revelation. And it went along these lines. You created your cancer, the fibroids, the pain, the bleeding, the chronic pain in the back, and your migraines through the toxicity of your thoughts. And therefore, you are the only one who can uncreate it. That's all. And I understood only too well that it was true. And so I set about uncreating. I developed the cancer and the other problems because my marriage had gone on the rocks. There was adultery and betrayal. I was in a rage, very angry, very sad, very upset. And then my husband then walked out on me. I was very sick, and so I wasn't able to work, and I did not have any means of survival. And so the only thing I knew to do was to write out 3 affirmations, and I chanted these affirmations out loud religiously from morning to night until I lost my voice. And then I spoke those affirmations out. I mouthed them silently. 5 days later, when I woke up, all the chronic pain in my back and the migraines had gone. And continuing to use these affirmations religiously, I was able to heal myself of cancer and the fibroids. And so, the subconscious speaks to my clients about healing, and they tell us, number 1, all healing is self-healing. Number 2, all healing is from Source, from Spirit, from God. People need to take responsibility for their own health, their own lives, and their own healing. They also tell us that unless we're born with an affliction, for example, a cleft palate, or you're born with a particular condition or illness or disease, or you've had an injury or accident, then all other issues, physical ailments, symptoms, aches, pains, and diseases are caused by unwellness of mind thoughts, fears, negativity. Many people go around, they shop around for healers, expecting that therapist to wave a magic wand, but it doesn't work. It's very easy to ask the subconscious to heal someone's knees, or hips that don't work, or arthritis, or asthma, or cancer. And they will do that, but that'll only be a temporary fix. So with Dolores' technique, it always starts with this. Healing starts with this. The first question always is, subconscious, what's caused this illness? What's caused the cancer? What's caused the diabetes? What's come through in many sessions is that cancer has to do with unresolved emotions, usually anger, sadness, or deep sorrow about something or somebody in one's life. Diabetes has to do with blood sugar. Sugar has to do with joy. When all the joy has gone out of someone's life, they will more than likely end up with diabetes. And some people will say, oh, but that's not true. My mother had cancer, or my grandmother had it too, or diabetes, and that's why I have it. The subconscious has also said, you may have a genetic predisposition to diabetes or cancer because of the family history. However, if that were true, then not only you, but your siblings, all of your siblings would have cancer and diabetes. Why only you? And so a catalyst or trigger is necessary. Three months before Dolores' workshop, my spirit guides told me to stop doing conventional hypnosis. And after a workshop, they explained that conventional hypnosis was not permissive. They told me that Dolores' technique was the best and most effective way of healing through hypnosis. So, go forth, child, and do this work. This is your life purpose, and you will see miracles that the doctors can only dream about. And this has happened.
Thank you. Well, folks, you've now heard Sian Chua's amazing story as a clinical hypnotherapist and a past life regressionist. I can tell you that she's one of Perth's foremost healers in this particular field. And when you get to know Sian, the love and care she puts into all her clients and her work is 110% from pure love. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.